thank you everybody to coming together tonight with our discussion around energy, which is obviously such an important subject for all of our customers and partners. What I would say first of all is that I have a dog, I have two small children, so please bear with me if you see them running in and out. That's what's happening, and I've also got a cough, so I'm sorry if my voice keeps breaking, but it's a pleasure to be able to host this event. I'm Catherine Evans. I'm the Director of Homes Operations for Stonewater. So I oversee everything asset management related, compliance related, and also environmental sustainability, which is obviously a huge priority for Stonewater and our partners. So it's a real privilege today to be sat here with, partners from across the sector, and obviously our lovely Emily, who oversees at the moment our homes environmental sustainability portfolio. If I could just ask Emily, Simon and Katie in turn just to introduce themselves, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. It's great to be here. As Catherine said, I work in environmental sustainability at Stonewater, and our team has a kind of responsibility for all areas environmental at Stonewater. So we oversee work on existing homes, making sure that they're energy efficient, and looking after our retrofit programme, trying to improve those properties. We also dabble a little bit in the new build side, supporting our development colleagues to make sure that our new homes are built sustainably. We work with customers, making sure that we're bringing you all on our net zero journey, and offering any advice that you might need around energy efficiency. And we even get involved in things like sustainable procurement to make sure that all of our partners share our environmental goals. So an example of a recent project that I've been working on is around electric vehicle charging. So we've been designing a policy and a process to allow any customers who have a driveway and would like to install an EV charger to be able to do that. And also thinking about how we start to install EV chargers on car parks, so that customers who don't have a driveway can still have access to sort of green transport. So that's been really exciting, and I'm sure I'll talk about it more later.
Hello everyone, my name is Simon Kilshaw. I work for Groundwork, the National Environmental Charity, and I specifically work for Groundwork Yorkshire. Groundwork runs a variety of community projects, but specifically I work for the Green Doctor programme. I'm the manager of a team of 14 Green Doctors that work across the region of Yorkshire, and we deliver a programme which is to help people who are struggling to pay their energy bills, what might be deemed to be or classified as being fuel poverty or energy vulnerability or in fuel stress in some way. We're helping to support those people through home visits, where we're providing advice, information, support around grants, very much working with lots of local partners, including house associations, death advice agencies from across the spectrum, really. We also deliver training, fuel poverty training programs, information. We deliver energy management system audits for organisations, community buildings. We're working closely with a lot of housing associations on their retrofit programmes. We have domestic energy assessors and retrofit assessors and retrofit coordinators in the team who are able to work together, as well as the Green Doctors who are working, giving advice and support for domestic households, to work together to combine the package to give them all of a holistic programme. So yeah, that's basically what I do, and link up with my other colleagues across the country with other Green Doctor programmes.
Hello, I'm Katie. I work for the Centre for Sustainable Energy, and so we're based in Bristol. We cover sort of the southwest and south central of the UK, so that goes up to sort of Slough, Ealing, and then all the way over to Cornwall and Devon, and very similar probably service to Simon's. We offer energy advice. We're an energy charity, so we just give people free and impartial advice, trying to figure out how to make their bills lower, so make their homes more efficient, or maybe some behavioural changes that will make it a bit cheaper. We always say if you defrost your fridge freezer, you can save £150 a year on your electric bill. And then we'll give people advice on things they could do, like draft proofing measures to make their home a bit warmer. We'll also talk about ways of making their income higher. So if we speak to someone and we think they might be entitled to some benefits they're not getting, we'll refer them to a benefit specialists who can help them apply. We'll think about grants, help people apply for kind of things about white goods, if they're missing any white goods, the warm home discount. And then sometimes we have things like prepayment meter vouchers. So when the energy companies are fined, that money goes into a pot, and then we can give that out to people who can't afford their heating. We haven't got any at the moment, but when we have them, we give those out to the customers we speak to. We give advice on if people have any complaints with their energy company. I know that energy companies can be really difficult to get through to and get answers from. So we'll speak on person's behalf, or better give them advice on their rights, and then we can take it all the way to the ombudsman and get resolution for people if they've got issues. And like Simon, about signposting people to local organisations if we can't help. If somebody needs money for a food bank, or if somebody needs a referral to mental health services, we'll do that as well. So yeah, we just try and think of all the different ways that we could help somebody have a bit more money so they can afford to keep their home warm, and not worry so much. I guess there are two major priorities.
Exceptional, thank you. Thank you so much for the introductions. And obviously, saving the best till last, we've got Emma, who's one of our surveyors from Stonewater. So if you'd like to introduce yourself as well, Emma, that would be wonderful.
Well, thanks, Catherine. Good evening, everybody. I'm the partnering surveyor in the homes team at Stonewater. So I'm responsible for any repair inspections within the West Rural region of the organisation. So that covers Shropshire, Gloucestershire, Worcestershire, and Herefordshire. I'm also responsible for some planned capital work improvement works across our homes, which includes heating installations, window and door replacements, and so on. And I'm also working to lead on the retrofit programme, which is an ambitious programme we're currently undertaking at the moment.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Emma. Lovely to meet you. I'm not sure we've met before, but nice to put a face to the name. I suppose before we get into the discussions, really important just for this evening to kind of put some boundaries in place. This is really around a kind of energy discussion as opposed to bringing up any other conversations around repairs and maintenance, etc. So we welcome comments from all of our customers and all of our forum members. But if there is anything that's beside that, so around your response repairs, etc., please just pop that through the chat line and we can pick that up offline. But we won't be responding to those particular comments in this forum. We'll take that away. So I think, Emily, it's over to you for an introduction, unless I'm incorrect.
I think that it'll just be time to start some questions, I think.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So, first couple of questions then. Will I be able to charge my electric car at my home anytime soon?
Oh, that's a good one, because I was talking about that when I introduced myself. Yes, so I hope very soon we will be ready to start that. At the moment, the way that we're working is starting, like I said, with driveways. So anyone who's got a driveway, we now have got a policy and process in place to allow you to install an EV charger on your driveway. So all you need to do is just get in touch with Stonewater, either by email, social media or phone, and you'll be sent out a list of requirements, just some of the things that we will need from you in order to grant that permission. But it's just sort of making sure that someone who's registered to install EV chargers is doing it and that sort of stuff. And then that should be pretty straightforward for you. Once you've provided all those documents, we'll be able to say yes, and you can go away and get one installed. If you have a car park that you park in, a Stonewater car park, then that's the next stage of our journey. So we're starting to work out what we can do around car parks. We are about to start working with a large EV charging provider who will help us to design the rollout of EV chargers across our car parks. So that's really exciting. And we've started doing our first few surveys of car parks just to understand where the chargers would best sit, how much it might cost. Is it better to put in a couple now or a couple in a few years, or put it all in at the moment? We're sort of working out those questions. And I think once we've got those under our belt, we'll then be designing a fuller sort of program of installing EV chargers, which will then, roll out across as many of our car parks as we possibly can. It will depend on whether there's communal electricity, whether there's enough electricity to be able to run chargers. So I can't promise every single car park, but every one that has the capacity, we will then be looking at installing. It will be a long process, I imagine, many years to get around all the car parks, but it's really exciting that we're starting that journey.
Thank you. Sorry, trying to find the unmute button there. And just for complete clarity there, Emily, EV for our wider customer base.
Electric vehicle.
Yeah, thank you.
That's my fault.
No worries at all. We all talk in acronyms, don't we? Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Was there anything that Simon or Katie wanted to, or Emma wanted to add to that response? No,
it's okay. just me at Stonewater that knows about electric cars. It's my little baby at the moment.
Okay, so next question for you then, Emily, is my home is an EPCE, so I don't think it's efficient. What are Stonewater doing about it?
Yes, that's a really good question. And I'm sure we can move on to some of the other panelists to talk about sort of tips for reducing energy usage in your home. But to start with, from me, it's just what are Stonewater doing about that? So as many of you might know, homes are given an efficiency rating, and it's a letter, a bit like you would get with a TV or with a dishwasher or something. You've got your A to G, and A is the best, all the way down. And at Stonewater, we have got a target to get all of our homes to an EPC band C by 2030. And so if your home is below a C, so a D or an E, that's about the lowest that we've got at the moment, we will be conducting a survey of your property to work out what it needs to get it up to that C point by 2030. And then, designing a program of measures specifically for your property to get it to that point. So it might be that you need a different heating system, or just more insulation, new windows. There's lots of different things that we could possibly need to do to get your property to a more efficient point. But I suppose what's important for me to say is that we will be getting it there. We are really keen for all of our homes to be really energy efficient. And so over the next few years, I think lots of you will be seeing those changes happening in your homes, which will hopefully make them cheaper to run, and they will be better for the environment. So that's really good. Yeah, I don't know if Simon or Katie wanted to jump in with anything else about sort of energy efficiency in the home or EPC ratings.
Yeah, sure. Whilst the fabric of the building is essential and the heating system is essential in being able to reduce energy costs and maintain an adequate standard of warmth in the home, like you say, there's many things that we can do, within the home ourselves. But it's good to know that there's some retrofit programs going ahead. Like I said before, we're working with many housing associations where, that's essential in enabling people to, take more control and just have a better health and well-being all around. So, I mean, as the Green Doctor Service, it's very much of, we provide free practical measures. So on our home visits, we'll be able to change light bulbs, for example, to LED light bulbs. We'll be able to do draft proofing around the home. Installing reflective radiator panels. So all these things, low cost measures, we can provide, and there's also the no cost also measures. The things that we can do just by looking around our home, perhaps on a room by room kind of case. It's a kind of like a bit of a green doctor approach. We look at each room and see how we could possibly save energy on a room by room. So, for example, how is the furniture structured within the room? How are we making? Is there a sofa in front of the radiator blocking, or is there some kind of furniture there that's preventing the heat from circulating around the room, or is benefiting some ways? Are there gaps around small drafts where maybe a thermal curtain or a door curtain or window curtains may be of use? It could perhaps be something like a laminate floor, perhaps, where we could, if you have a floor covering or floor rug, it can help reduce the heat loss through the floor. Or many other. I'm sure Katie has many other examples. Shorter shower times. Things that we may do be in the kitchen, keeping lids on pans, reducing cooking time, having steamers, not using the oven maybe so often, using a bowl for washing up. Many ways in which we can, things that we can do ourselves, which are cumulative, do account for something. I think what maybe puts some people off sometimes is that they think, oh, it's just a small thing, then it doesn't really make any difference in the overall scheme. But actually it does. And you can make substantial savings per year by doing those things, just the small, cheap things yourself.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I feel like the majority of money that we save people day to day, we've got a project that's just council tenants. So we're not able to do any of the sort of installations or insulation that we'd normally do. And there's still so much that people can do. I think everything Simon listed is brilliant. And I think that idea, we don't think of it in that way about going through each room, but it makes so much sense because every house is so different, every room is so different, and there's always little things you can do. And I guess the things that come to my mind are things like, if you turn your heating down by a degree, it saves you like over £200 a year. If you've got your heating system set up so that it's coming on for the hours that you need it, it's coming off, half an hour before you go to bed, those sort of things, they sound really small, but they make a huge difference. And I imagine we'll talk about Economy 7 later, but I feel like particularly with Economy 7, those controls being at the right setting for you can just make a massive difference to your bill, even if you are in an E-rated building. But that's lovely also to hear that you're upgrading them, because the warmer the house is, the better for everyone in it.
Wonderful, thank you. And that actually came on to the next question, which was, what can we do to make things easier for families? So that's wonderful. Thank you so much. So if I move us on to our next question, how's the government energy rebate going to work?
I'm happy to attempt to answer this question. So what the government is doing, the rebate in particular, the rebate is just going to be a £200 loan. So in October, my understanding is £200 will come off your bill. And then for the next 5 years, I don't know if Simon's going to nod to tell me that's correct, you'd be paying £50, would be my maths, every year back to pay off that loan. So the gamble is that gas prices and electric in turn are going to go down. So if they can lend us money now, when the prices go down, we'll be able to pay it back. So we just have to hope that gas prices go down, or else it's going to be quite interesting to see what the government decide to do. And then the other thing that's happening is that the local councils are going to give £150 to everybody on the top 5 list of properties, your different bands for your council tax. And I think a lot of councils are trying to figure out still how they're going to do that, but that is their plan. So even if you're not on, even if you don't pay council tax, they'll have a scheme so that you can still get that £150. If you don't pay by direct debit, they'll have a scheme, they'll try and work it all out. But I think it's just taking them a little while. Hopefully that answers the question.
And for our customers, and this probably extended to the wider panel, but obviously I'd welcome your thoughts as well. how do our customers know whether they're on the right tariff or not? What's the avenues that are available to them?
I'm happy to start. So a lot of people will be with an energy company where their energy company folded over Christmas. I think a lot of energy companies folded then. And unless you've gone on to a fixed tariff, so unless you've chosen to go on to a tariff with your supplier that will have the word fixed in the title and will probably have a date of when you started it in the title, you'll be on the standard variable. And for all of the time that CSE has been running, we've been telling people not to be on the standard variable. It's way more expensive, but suddenly it is the one to be on. The standard variable tariff is protected by the government's price cap, so they can only charge a certain amount per kilowatt hour that you use. Whereas if you're on a fixed tariff, it costs a lot more. So I looked it up yesterday for myself, and if I'm on a standard variable because my company went bust, but if I wanted to go onto a fixed tariff now, I'm in a 2-bedroom terraced house, and it would be an extra £1,220 a year for me to be on a fixed tariff. So it's a difficult situation because the way the standard variable tariffs is that they'll go up. So in October, the government will look back at how the gas prices have been over the months before and decide how much higher to put that cap up on the standard variable, and the same will happen in March. So to be on the right tariff is an impossible question for us to answer right now. That you could take that fixed tariff. I could take the £1,200 extra tariff today. I would know that my tariff is not going to go up until April next year. And that might be a bad thing if the cap doesn't go up in October and doesn't go up in March, or it would be a great thing if the cap goes up in October and in March. So it's really difficult to know. But we would say that if you're on the standard variable, that's where we'd recommend that you stay for now, particularly because if the government bring anything in, it's going to protect you more on the standard variable than somebody on a fixed tariff. If you're already on a fixed tariff, especially if you went on it before March, you're laughing, you're paying way less than everyone else, and you should stay on that as well. So basically our advice is to not do anything. I don't know if Simon's got different advice to that or anything to add.
No, our advice is the same. Yeah, stay on the standard variable tariff. That's the cheapest option at the moment. 28. So the default price cap is 28 pence for electricity per kilowatt hour, 7 pence per kilowatt hour for gas. I was interested. I was just looking. 2019 as a difference. It was 10 pence per kilowatt hour for electricity and 2.3 for gas in 2019. Just to show you the difference. So obviously there's that 54% increase on the 1st of April. Which pushed the average bill up to just below 2,000, slightly over 2,000 if you're on a prepayment meter, unfortunately. But yeah, very much so. And it's a bit difficult calculation to make, isn't it? It's I have heard some calculations where if there's a 15% difference between the what's being offered as a fixed term tariff and the standard variable tariff, then it might be worth going for that in the long term. But depending on what prices do, we've got the conflict in Russia, of course, and we're looking like, reading about gas supply disruptions, that's going to put prices up. And as Katie was saying, we've got the 1st of October, prices going up again. So it's a difficult one, but definitely I think sticking on the standard variable tariff and just echoing what, things that Katie was saying before about what the government's offered at the moment as some kind of alleviation for people really isn't working, that we find, and other organisations like ourselves. There's a huge demand for people who just can't cope. So we're calling for, Katie's mentioned vouchers. We've been given over £20,000 worth of emergency fuel vouchers since the 1st of April. That's just around in our areas, just around Yorkshire. That's how much people are really struggling at the moment. So we're calling for something more, which is like a social energy tariff, similar like they do in some of the water companies, where there's an actual price cap tariff for people who are vulnerable, which is less than the standard variable tariff. But yeah. Difficult situation for many.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting conversation, isn't there? So it's one of the questions that we've had from one of our customers online is, what can I do if I can't afford my bills? How do we, what advice should we be giving to our customers in that scenario?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're seeing. There's just people can't cope, and it's not just the people who maybe have been to be in vulnerable groups. It's like I was saying earlier, it's people from across the spectrum who we wouldn't expect to come to present to Fuel Poverty Programme in some way. Fortunately, at the moment, even though there's many people who are struggling, there's lots of schemes going on with local councils. So things like the Household Support Fund, for example, where there's money being given on a flexible basis to distribute to residents in certain areas, and that includes like things like fuel vouchers or access to maybe white goods or certain measures. So I think one of the first port of calls would be at your local welfare support schemes, and to see what they can do if you haven't got any schemes like within the Housing Association. And then also there's like other national schemes like fuel voucher schemes like Katie mentioned before that came through from the Energy Redress Fund, or there's the Fuel Bank Foundation. So yeah, local council I think is alert the Housing Association to the fact that you're struggling, and contact the local council or the debt advice team within the Housing Association.
Wonderful, thank you. So question from another customer, would it be cheaper to have solar panels, and would Stonewater ever install them? Is there a chance of checking if I have insulation and if it needs improving? I'm going to put that through to you, Emily. Tough one there.
I'd also ask Emma to maybe jump in on some of this as well. In terms of the solar panels, I think it's probably case by case. There might be some cases where, like I was talking about retrofit earlier, in order to get a property up to a band C, or in the future when we're going for a band B, some homes may require solar panels to get them there, in which case there's a chance that Stonewater would install them. But if there's any customers who are keen to install them themselves, then that's kind of a separate conversation that we can have around the permission to do that. It's just very much worth looking at that cost benefit analysis, because they are expensive to install. So if you're thinking about installing them yourselves, you just need to look at how long you plan on being in the property and if you will get the benefit from the solar panels in the time that you're there. But yeah, definitely that is a conversation that we can have with individual customers if they were looking for permission in that area. And then Emma, I'm not sure if you want to jump in on the insulation point.
Okay, yeah, just on that solar PV. So we have actually carried out a few hundred surveys already in terms of the retrofit programme. And we're identifying that solar PV is one of the recommendations that's being put forward, which I think is really, really positive. So that's definitely a consideration that we're making and installing moving forward. In terms of insulation, yes, there's a number of points we can raise here. So cavity wall insulation, external wall insulation and loft insulation form part of the retrofit whole house approach package of work. So that's definitely considered for that. Where obviously it's important to note that these properties are some of the lower performing properties. So where there could potentially, you're concerned that the level of loft insulation is not sufficient, then please do contact our customer contact team. And by all means, if it's not between, well, the average is about 250 to 300 mil within the loft, then by all means, we will raise an order and get that topped up for you. That's not a problem at all. Whether you're concerned there could potentially be some heat loss through the cavity wall, because essentially, there is a life expectancy with all elements, including cavity wall insulation and external wall insulation. So where you've got any concerns, we are now introducing thermal imaging software with our surveyors. And also we have independent surveyors as well, and consultants that can help us where we need to, really, where we need to upgrade or extract and refill. And we do that quite often where we need to. So yes, I hope that answers that.
Says my heating is old and needs replacing. When do you plan to replace it? I wonder if you want to just talk a little bit about when we generally replace heating and what it might be replaced with.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So Stonewater have a very robust system in place where we record the installation date for all of our heating systems across our homes. And In order to calculate the estimated replacement date, the organisation applies a life expectancy value on that. So that is the number of years that we expect that heating system to perform. And this helps steer our future programmes. Stonewater and our partnering contractors will contact those customers where your heating is due for replacement. Alternatively, please contact our customer service team and we will let you know when your heating is due for replacement. We do have a number of robust servicing, repair and replacement contracts in place. So if you feel you've got any concerns with your existing heating system, then please do let us know and we can arrange for an appropriate contractor to attend and come and investigate any concerns you may have in the meantime.
Wonderful, thank you. So a bit more of a kind of on the ground question here from one of our customers. So you mentioned in the introduction about defrosting fridge, freezers, etc. Our customer said that they wish they'd understood that earlier. How does that actually work and what's the benefit to individual households?
Oh, that's a great question. Gosh, I feel like I've been saying that stat for over a year and no one's asked me that. I would have thought that, so it only applies to, you know, more modern freezers are called frost free, so they don't have a kind of element. You know, sometimes you have a freezer where you try and open the door and you can't really open the door, you can't open the drawers. So it's only those ones, the ones that kind of have these elements that frost up, that this applies to. My understanding would just be that there's something about the frost that makes them work inefficiently. I don't know, Simon, if you can give a better answer than that. I'm sorry.
Not really, no, but it is basically there's just that the freer it is, the more the air can get cooler quicker and is able to just function more efficiently, basically. But I don't know the technicalities of that. But yeah, if it's frost free, then it's working more efficiently, basically. But also, you know, obviously, if you can afford newer appliances, most efficient appliances, you know, that is the best possible way to go about it. If you can actually afford that, you know, we come across many customers who, you know, they're trying their best to be most efficient in some of the behavioural changes that they may make, but they may have a very like 10-15-year-old chest freezer, which actually is absolutely costing them a fortune. So if you can, you know, buy the most efficient appliances in the first place.
And just talking about fridge freezers, actually, something that my partner always tells me to do is never put warm food in the fridge, because that makes your fridge work harder to keep cool. But also, if you're defrosting things from the freezer, put them in the fridge, because then the cold from the frozen item will help keep your fridge cooler without using as much energy.
There you go. We've all learnt something there, haven't we? Thanks for that. So next question. Is Economy 7 always really expensive? And should I have my tank on all the time?
I'm happy to start. I love talking about Economy 7. So please don't have your tank on all the time. I know a lot of people are advised to have it on all the time. The way I imagine it is if you wanted to keep a kettle boiling on your hob all day long in case you wanted a cup of tea, it just costs a lot of money. So what we advise is that, so your Economy 7 is cheapest during the night. Every kind of tariff is slightly different, but as a rule of thumb, you know, after 1 a.m. before 5 a.m, that's almost certainly within your Economy 7 hours. So you want your hot water to be heating up in those hours only, because it's a lot cheaper. The insulation on your tank should keep it nice and warm all day. And we would just say that if you've got it on at the moment for 8 hours, just keep reducing it by an hour a day until you haven't got enough hot water for the day, and then you kind of know how many hours your household needs to have that hot water tank on for. So yeah, in terms of the immersion tank, which is the sort of big insulated tank that you'll have that heats up your hot water if you're electric only, have it on for as little as possible. There is a boost function, but bear in mind that your electric is more expensive during the day, so really you want to be heating up at night, and it will stay warm during the day. And in terms of Economy 7, it is so expensive if you're not using it correctly, but it doesn't need to be that expensive if you know how to use it. So we've got fact sheets on how to use night storage heaters, how Economy 7 works, and we also have YouTube videos, especially the new night storage heaters. very weird to set. It's really difficult to explain it over the phone to somebody. So often we'll send them a video and then they can see how to set it, and you can save a lot of money. So I think, yeah, your immersion tank, for every hour that you have it on less, you save £200 a year. If you're using your Economy 7 correctly, you should save about £75 a year. And night storage heaters used correctly save about £150 a year. So if somebody's not doing all those things, that's costing them, I don't know the maths, £400 maybe more a year. So it can be really expensive. The other thing that we come across quite often when people have got really high bills is something wrong with the way that the Economy 7 is working in their house. So maybe they're not even on an Economy 7 meter, but they've got night storage heaters and they've got an immersion tank. And so it's really important to check that you've got an Economy 7 meter, you're on an Economy 7 tariff if you've got things like night storage heaters or immersion tanks. And then, if you've still got high bills, and you're in our area or in your Simon's areas, then please do give us a call, because we can try and figure out what that might be. Sometimes we'll speak to people and there's something wrong with the way their meter is wired, so they're being charged for their night storage heaters, both on their night rate and on the day rate. There's weird things that can happen with Economy 7. So yeah, I'd just say just get in touch and we can give you some advice and try and figure out how it can be cheaper.
Wonderful, thank you. That was such a comprehensive response. Thank you. That was really interesting. And it also goes without saying that any customer that is facing any financial kind of challenges, just get in touch with Stonewater and talk to us. We'll be able to support you to navigate that process. So thank you so much for that. The next question then is, I've got an old storage heater. When will Stonewater be replacing them? So I'll take this question. We have a investment program that's in place, and we take all of the data that we have available to us and try to ensure that we invest in all of our Stonewater homes in the most appropriate way. So the storage heater, if that needs to be replaced, our team will be in touch with you as and when we're able to work through that, I would say. Don't know, Emily, if you want to add to that at all.
I think it just really comes back to what Emma was talking about earlier. Emma went into a little bit more detail on the heating programme and all of that kind of cycle of replacing. And yes, we will replace when it gets to the point that we think the lifetime of that product is ending. But if you're having problems, if you really think your heating's not efficient, and we've not got in touch with you yet, because in our eyes it's not quite at the end of its life, yeah, just get in touch and someone from Stonewater or one of our contractors can come out and double check it for you and make sure that you're using it properly. Because I think one of the other things that can sometimes happen, particularly with storage heaters or even some of the newer technologies like heat pumps, is that not everyone knows how to use them properly, and sometimes isn't shown exactly how to use them when they get that type of heating. So yeah, it would also be a good opportunity for us to just make sure that you know how to use it and you feel comfortable with it. But we've also created some animated videos that sort of show you just how to use each heating type. So we have one just for your standard gas boiler, one for storage heaters, one for air source and ground source heat pumps. And then we've just got another video as well that's sort of hints and tips on how to be most energy efficient in the home. But they're all on our Energy Hub, which is an online platform with lots of tips and information about energy. So hopefully one of my colleagues can put it in the Facebook chat for you, a link to that Energy Hub. But that's a really good place to go as well if you're not sure how to use your heating or feel like it's not quite working properly.
Thank you for that. Sorry, I'm just looking at the questions that are coming up in the chat bar. So what are the most efficient heaters? Is it more efficient or energy efficient to move away from water tanks and not have a combi boiler instead of hot water?
I'm happy to start. Other people can jump in. I reckon that's directing down the route of the air source and the ground source heat pumps, which are the new most efficient forms of heating that we're talking about at the moment. And I'm very excited because I am hopefully, fingers crossed, buying a new house that has an air source heat pump already installed. So I'll be able to report back on how that goes. But yeah, those are the two most efficient types of heating that we are talking about at the moment. You know, the older forms of heating, just classic gas boilers, are what most people would have and can still be very efficient. But yeah, maybe it's interesting to talk a little bit about heat pumps. I don't know if Simon, you've had much experience with them.
Yeah, we're working on, like I said before, some retrofit programs where there's air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps have been and are being installed. And yes, whilst they can be more efficient, it's a new system. So if someone's coming from electricity only properties, say with storage heaters, the old storage heaters, and going to an air source heat pump, it's obviously very important that along with the air source heat pump schemes, there's an installation program, because the two go hand in hand. To maximize that heat. It's a different way of using the heating. So what we found is that while you cannot perhaps say you can definitely save money by having an air source heat pump or a ground source heat pump, but for the same cost, you may be able to have a more warmth, a better standard of health and well-being inside the home for the same money. But it's a different way of using it. So it's more of an ambient temperature rather than a higher temperature. What we found is that where the air source heat pumps have been installed, it's very much a matter of the training and information, and also aftercare after the installation has gone ahead, and working with some people who have gone from a new system and perhaps won't actually say that they don't know how to use it, and they go along for many years and the bills haven't decreased, or even the system's broken in some way because they don't know how to use it. So it's very much that working with the tenant and that aftercare that we found, that holistic package again works best.
I think I'd like to add something, if that's okay. I just think an important aspect to note with the retrofit programme is that we are taking a fabric first approach. So as long as we, focus on improving the fabric of the building through insulation, etc., then that will indefinitely reduce the heat demand of whatever heating system is within that home. So that in turn will reduce our customers' fuel bills and reduce carbon emissions.
Lovely, thank you. And just on that point, or perhaps kind of moving on from that point, so for those customers that don't, at the moment, perhaps haven't had that retrofit opportunity, if you are on a prepayment meter and perhaps kind of looking, to evolve through that situation, what can they do to reduce their costs, do you think? Are there any tangible kind of advice that we can give them?
Is that specifically are you asking about people on prepayment meters? How can they reduce?
Yeah. What can they do? So if we outside the retrofit program, what can we do to support customers that are on prepayment meters?
Well, in some ways, prepayment meters may be a good option for people who have maybe had difficulty budgeting, for example. So, if a credit meter would be the wrong option to go for in that case, because very quickly they can accumulate huge amounts of debt and then they've got a big problem and they can't pay the rent, for example, and other things. So that becomes a difficulty. So it's very much, prepayment meter isn't always a bad option. It may pay a little bit more at the moment, but when tariffs perhaps do come more available and there's more tariffs available for prepayment meters. But I think it's very much, it's a case of flagging up the danger of self-disconnection. And that's the thing with prepayment meters, because you don't put any money in, or you don't top up, you've got no heating, and people may not tell you about that and they will self-disconnect. So it's very much, there are instruments and devices that you could have in homes which could monitor, heat inside the homes or temperature or humidity. Perhaps as a flag, or housing officers can be involved in more vulnerable cases. So yeah, some of those things.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was really insightful. So next question from one of our participants is, the Energy Hub and Guide to Sharing Storage Heaters. Is there any advice we can give to our kind of customers around how we use storage heaters to best effect?
Yeah, I think we just really go back to that. The videos that we've created are probably the easiest place for people to get all the information that they need and be able to go back and rewatch little bits if they need to. It's probably better than me going into loads of detail now, but yeah, it's just back to what Katie said earlier, that storage heaters don't have to be really expensive if they're used correctly. But if people find themselves constantly using the boost function and things, that can become really expensive really quickly. So I definitely direct back to that video.
Wonderful. And that's all accessible via the customer hub and on our website, etc. So that's all out there. Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Emily. So from another customer on the line at the moment, what financial support am I eligible for to help with energy bills, or more? Yeah, that's a really good question. Or is the ways of looking at more energy efficient white goods? What can we do as a business to support with that? Probably one for you, Emily.
Well, particularly about white goods, it's just making sure that you have the most efficient sort of type of white good that you can. So it used to be, I think, the A+++ or something, but now it's just gone back to A. So the new ones now are just an A rated. And yeah, like Simon was saying earlier, you can save a lot of money by having more efficient white goods. So I think that is probably the best way to save money. But just making sure that, I suppose, people don't, in order to buy a new fridge freezer, get one on credit that's going to cost them loads and loads of money or something like that. As I was saying earlier, cost benefit analysis, if the amount that you'll be paying in repayments for a new dishwasher or something will outweigh the savings you'll make from having an efficient one, then probably don't. But there's lots of good websites. I think Which always do really good information on energy efficient white goods. So yeah, those are sort of places I'd recommend having a look.
Excellent, thank you very much. So from the technical people behind the scenes, any more questions for the panel?
Can I add a little bit more just on a question you asked earlier?
Do, yes.
Great, thanks. You were just asking about people who couldn't afford their bills, and Simon was talking about the support available from local councils. I guess I just wanted to say a few more things on, because I know a lot of people we speak to, and I'm sure Simon, they're just struggling so much. I spoke to someone earlier who hasn't put heating on for 3 months, and I've been cold, so I'm sure she's been really cold. So I wanted to say, one of the resources, I always think Martin Lewis is wonderful, and he's got an article out recently about heating the person rather than the home, and he says it's really upsetting for him to have to give that advice, and I think we probably all feel like that, but it's so awful for your health, especially if you're elderly or you've got a health condition, for your the room you're in to go under 18 degrees. It's really, really bad for you. It can cause strokes and heart attacks and things. So the priority is really keeping warm. If you can look up his article, please do. I have lots of tips, things like heated throws that only cost a few pence an hour to run, but will keep you warm and will keep you safe. Keeping just one room warm, if that's all you can afford to do. So turning down your heating in the other rooms and just having the room that you're kind of living in, your sitting room normally, that's heated, wearing lots of layers, wearing thick socks, wearing a hat, whatever you can do to stay warm is really important. And then if you're really struggling with your bills, I think just contact with your energy supplier is really important. They really struggle to do any kind of negative enforcement action on people who are engaging with them. So if you're burying your head in the sand, if you're not opening the letters, you're most likely to get that knock on the door. Whereas if you're calling them and you're telling them, I can't afford this, I can afford this much and I'll pay this much, then they can direct you to support. They're much better in the last few months than they have been in the last few years for getting support for people. And also, if you've got any condition that makes you vulnerable to not having heating, so if you're elderly, you've got any sort of health condition, let them know and they'll put you on their priority service register. When you're on their priority service register, they give you on average an extra 8 weeks of not paying before they call the bailiffs. So, there are things that they can do to help if you stay in contact with them. And if you live in an area that we work in, then please give us a call and we can see what we can do to help. If you live anywhere that groundwork are, then you can call them and they'll be able to give you advice and help. And there's a website called Simple Energy where you can find the sort of charities that we work for in different areas, so wherever you live. And I'm sure that Stonewater will be able to find a local one for you. You know, there is a lot of support. I know it's hard to find. I know the waiting time for it can be quite long, but please do just reach out, because you know, thousands of people are struggling like you are, and there is help there for you.
Wonderful, thank you so much. That was, yeah, really.
And just on that, Catherine, I think obviously it's important to note also that Stonewater have their own engagement team to help with fuel advice and support people on an individual basis should it be required.
Thank you very much. I suppose on that note, we have got a few other questions that we can answer outside of this environment, but I wonder whether, Simon, do you want to give a bit of a closing synopsis?
Yeah, I mean, echoing, you know, what everybody said, you know, particularly things Katie has said, you know, other support, we talked about welfare support, we talked about vouchers possibly in the area, Warm Homes discount scheme when that's open, being with the right supplier, knowing how to apply. Some of these things are online, so people might need help applying for those who may be digitally excluded. So schemes within housing associations to, you know, maybe target those people who are most vulnerable, who may not be engaged, could be because of language issues or a variety of other things as well. I think from a housing association point of view, and we work across, you know, with a lot of housing associations across the regions, I think, you know, having a more integrated approach. So when you've got fuel poverty as part of like the customer services team, you've got it as part of the repairs teams, you've got the tenant engagement teams. So they know you've got maybe working with an independent organisation, you know, who are trusted intermediary. We've known from experience that it can be difficult for a housing provider and housing tenant to come together on certain particular issues. There's a traditional barrier there in some ways. So working with trusted intermediaries can help to combat some of those barriers in some ways. And we talk about energy here, but tied up with energy as well very closely is water. So the use of water, you know, particularly, you know, hot water. We might not be able to save people on switching tariffs at the moment, but we can help through social water funds. Applying for the water support, Water Sure Fund, helping people on a water meter could save a few £100s a year. So there's many other different ways. And like, you know, Katie was saying, you know, reach out if you're in trouble. And there are many, you'd be surprised how many schemes there are available for support.
Excellent, thank you so much. And just a reminder that you can also, like for all of our customers that are looking or watching this video at the moment, you can obviously refer yourselves to CSE and Groundwork. So the links will be available to all of our customers to access that. And for further information, we have our Energy Hub website with lots of top tips and ideas. And again, the link will be posted in the comments. And also just generally, if you're interested in engaging with us on this, you know, such an important topic, please just do drop us a line. So for customers and colleagues aside, it's so important. Yeah, so I think that's been quite an interesting conversation, and I'm really grateful. And I'll probably close this now by just saying thank you so much. It's been insightful for me, and I'm hopeful that this will be insightful for colleagues and customers moving forward. So a very big thank you. Thank you to Katie, to Simon, to Emma, and to obviously Emily, who's our star of environmental sustainability. But to all of our customers that have attended today and will watch this video moving forward, very big thank you. And to everybody, obviously, behind the scenes as well, that have made this so effortless. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.